Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. I just finished watching Naked and Afraid Last One Standing Season 3 Episode 5, and if I had to give this episode a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 4. The episode wasn't my least favorite for the season, but it was pretty close to taking over that spot, and this was due to how the game was being played and how predictable the next elimination was. But over the course of the review, I will be sharing my thoughts on the important events for the episode, and I will share my thoughts on the 3 remaining teams in the order of strongest to weakest. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. The first important event for this episode would have to be the race to get the hog. Very early on in the episode, we get a scene showing Jermaine and Chini going hunting for some hog. Along in their journey, they encounter a fawn that Jermaine tries to get but narrowly misses with his bow and arrow. A few minutes later, Jermaine and Chini spot a group of pigs, but Chini narrowly misses them with the bow and arrow. We then get a scene with Matt and Max hunting hogs in the same area. Matt takes a shot and he misses, but later on in the episode, Matt switches up his strategy by migrating to another area and hiding in a blind. By waiting for the hogs to come to him, Matt found success and he nailed a hog that was over 200 pounds. This scene was significant for a few reasons. The most important reason is that back in episode 3, when Patrick and Jermaine were debating on the best strategy for hunting hogs, Jermaine pointed out that the hogs were coming near their camp, and it might be best to wait for them to come, then take their shot versus chasing after the hogs. So it appears that the strategy that worked for hunting hogs was Jermaine's strategy. And it's not to say that other strategies wouldn't work, but this successful hunt does give some credibility to Jermaine's advice on hunting hogs. But I think that another reason why this hunt was very significant was because this is the first season of Last One Standing where the opportunities to hunt big game animals with a bow and arrow were very plentiful. And I'm willing to bet that it's making some of the cast members from the first 2 seasons pretty jealous. But the true head scratching moment for me would be Matt's decision to share his big game kill with everybody else. According to Matt, his decision to share food was a way to play mind games with everybody else. But if I'm on the show and we're all competing for a 6-figure prize, then a person's energy levels could be the difference maker in winning the prize. And in my opinion, it doesn't make much sense from a strategic standpoint to willingly share the hog with everybody. I might be wrong on this, but in my opinion, Matt shared the hog with everybody for 1 or 2 reasons. Either production strongly suggested that he shared with everybody because failure to do so would make the game less competitive, or Matt knew that the animal that size will require all hands on deck to process and cook it in a timely manner, and Matt believed in working smarter and not harder. So I don't buy the psychological games excuse that Matt used for sharing, because if Matt really wanted to play psychological games, he would have visited the other camps while eating a piece of the hog, and he would have told the other camps how big the hog was. That's what the petty side of me would have done. The second important event for this episode would have to be the episode challenge. In this challenge, the teams must construct no more than 6 primitive axes per team, and they must use those axes to chop down a tree and drag the tree across the finish line. The first team to complete the challenge, the fastest, gets 2 blades and several emu eggs. The second team to finish the challenge gets a 1 blade and several emu eggs. And the team that comes in last gets nothing. So while this was not an elimination challenge, it was a challenge that seemed to be designed to separate the weak from the strong. My issue with this challenge being part of this season of Naked and Afraid Last One Standing was that the exact same challenge was done last season, and 3 of the survivalists from last season that did the challenge are on this season, 2 of which are on the same team. And with Darren being the king of bushcrafting and flint knapping stones, along with Matt and Trish, this challenge was theirs to lose from the moment it was announced. So I wasn't surprised that Darren, Matt, and Trish finished first and won the grand prize. I also wasn't surprised that Max, Laura, and Kayla came in second, while Patrick, Chini, and Jermaine came in third. My biggest takeaway from this challenge was that strategy beats strength in numbers. Patrick, Chini, and Jermaine had the strength in numbers, but they couldn't agree on a strategy for attacking the tree and constructing their axes. Darren, Trish, and Matt had a solid strategy going into the challenge, and one could argue that due to their experience doing the challenge last year, the competitive advantage that they had made things completely unfair. And I know that some folks will mention the next observation, so I'll bring it up as well. If we're being completely honest and transparent, Darren and Matt did nearly 90% of the work required to build the axes and chop the tree down. Unfortunately, Trish really didn't do much in the way of helping them with the physical labor part of the challenge. After they had won the challenge, Matt made a comment about picking Trish over Jermaine because her drive to never give up was greater than Jermaine's brute strength. But the truth of the matter is that any of the cast members from this season, including those that were already eliminated, could have replaced Trish for the challenge, and Darren's team would have still won. When it comes to Max's team, I was impressed with how Max did the bulk of the physical labor required to get his team the second place victory. But I do wonder how much longer Max will be able to carry the team before his teammates start to impede his progress to become the last one standing. The last significant event that I want to talk about was the beef between Patrick and Jermaine, as well as the aftermath of the beef. The beef is a continuation of the bad blood that these two shared for the past few episodes, and things finally reached a head in this episode. The beef picks up after Jermaine arrived back at the camp, and he made it seem like he wasn't the last person chosen. Now, me personally, if I were in Jermaine's position, I would have been completely honest about the situation, and I would have used being picked last as a motivation to help my team come in first in the next challenge. But Jermaine handled this matter in the way that he wanted to, and Patrick smelled blood in the water. Patrick then vowed to essentially play mind games with Jermaine until Jermaine tapped out. Now, in my last review, I predicted that Patrick's team would lose the next challenge and that Jermaine would be eliminated. So while I was right in predicting that Jermaine would be the next to go home, I never thought that he would voluntarily tap out. So here's how I view the beef between Jermaine and Patrick. It's impossible for everybody in this world to get along and have kumbaya moments for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But in a team setting, when teammates fail to find some common ground and come together to get the stuff done, then the tensions will prevent that team from being as successful as possible. In my last review, I mentioned that Patrick's team was the strongest team from a physical standpoint, but mentally, they're stuck playing checkers while the other teams were playing chess. Patrick is a leader on his team, and in my opinion, a good leader knows how to meet people where they are and get the best out of their team members. Jermaine seems like a laid-back individual, but he's also somebody who's very opinionated, and he's not shy about telling somebody about how he feels. The same goes with Patrick, so putting these two people on the same team could be like a powder keg waiting to explode, which is why a good leader will try to solve problems early on so that they don't grow into something bigger. Now granted, it's not Patrick's job to coddle Jermaine or be his best friend, but I do believe that if Jermaine were on any other team for the Axe Challenge, none of those teams would have come in last. Nevertheless, I don't blame Jermaine for tapping out. He was a member of what he felt was a toxic team, and that's added stress on top of having to survive in an unforgiving environment with limited food and resources. Jermaine also likely knew that the road to being the last one standing was only going to get tougher, and he bowed out before his time would eventually come to an end. So while Patrick may have won the battle with Jermaine, one has to wonder if the small victory was really worth it. From the way that the episode was edited, the other teams do not trust Patrick. Thus far in the season, he has been the only cast member to steal a survival item, he's the only cast member to make his own teammate quit for personal reasons, and he talked about Jermaine to other teams behind Jermaine's back, and that information will likely make its way to the other cast members on the season. Now, Matt is very smart when it comes to playing this game, and I predict that Matt will do everything in his power to get the other survivalists on his side, and he'll try to do to Patrick what he did to Jeff in Season 1. But you also have to think about how the fans of the show and some of the Naked and Afraid All-Stars will react to seeing how Patrick handled his conflict with Jermaine. I don't think Patrick deserves to be vilified for running Jermaine off the show, but other people may not see it that way. So all in all, I think that Patrick's decision to get Jermaine out of the competition was an easy solution, and it may have some immediate benefit. But I don't know how things will fare for Patrick once the teams are disbanded and the remaining survivalists have to form their own alliances. So here are my thoughts on the 3 remaining teams in the order of strongest to weak. The first team is Darren, Matt, and Trish. This team is well fed, they have the best survival items, and they're motivated to win the challenges. Because the competitive gap between this team and the other teams is so wide, I believe that production will be changing things sooner than later in order to make things competitive. But I don't see anyone from this team going home anytime soon. The second team might come as a shocker, but it's Patrick and Cheney. With Jermaine gone, Patrick can be the leader that he wants to be, and Cheney can be a good supportive figure. It also helps that Patrick wouldn't have to carry any of Cheney's weight in the upcoming challenges. Furthermore, if you watch the previews, then there are a few scenes with Patrick and Cheney that show Cheney being victorious in some sort of challenge. If you couple that with Jermaine's prediction that Chini will make it far in the competition, I think there's a possibility that Chini will make it to the finale of this season of Last One Standing. The last team is of Max, Laura, and Kayla. Max is a powerhouse, no doubt about it. But with Laura still injured and Kayla very limited in what she can do physically, I don't know how many more challenges Max could carry before the team starts to break apart. The previews for next week's episode leads me to believe that there will either be several eliminations or there will be a team shake, but it's a little too early to tell what will happen. So this marks the end of my review. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comment section and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.